5 Browns on the roster bubble, according to dogpounddaily.com. Running back Dearness Johnson, linebacker Mack Wilson, Porter Gustin, Malcolm Smith, and defensive back Sheldrick Redwine. Do you see all those guys as kind of battling? And as you look at it, who do you think is in probably one of the toughest battles there?
I think the toughest battle on that list is Mack Wilson. It's hard for me to see where he fits in that linebacking core. Now, Malcolm Smith is interesting. I feel like he's going to make it. He's a veteran. I thought he was one of their better linebackers last year. He was sort of a nice late addition by Andrew Berry to that linebacking core. It was really good in coverage. Now, I know they've upgraded, the coverage at that position, but there's still a lot of young guys you're counting on with Owusu Koromoa. Tony Fields is a guy that we haven't seen yet because he's dealing with a foot injury. He might end up sneaking onto the practice squad ultimately. So I think there's room for Malcolm Smith. Mack Wilson, though, it might come down to him and Sione Takitaki, honestly, 2 guys that were drafted together, Takitaki in the 3rd, Mack Wilson in the 5th a few years ago. It may come down to one of those 2 guys.
When you look at like a Porter Gustin, that's a guy who had flashes that were really good, but you mentioned that defensive line room, it's awfully crowded.
And I think that one will come down to what they think of a guy like Curtis Weaver. That's a guy that they kind of grabbed from Miami last year that the Dolphins were trying to sneak through to injured reserve, and the Browns grabbed him off of waivers, and he didn't play because he was hurt. But if they really like him and he kind of shows what he did at Boise State, where he became, I believe he was their all-time sack leader there, really put up big numbers at Boise State. If they like him, then that might spell the end for Porter Gustin. But I don't know that I'd write off Gustin just yet. I think he is a guy they really, really like. And you mentioned it. He's a guy they turned to last year pretty early on when they had some injuries over there.
The fact that we're talking about these kind of guys shows you how the roster has been upgraded. It's a significant upgrade, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
I mean, there's years where you'd look at Porter Gustin and you'd say, oh, man, this guy might start 10 games for this football team. Now, obviously, with injuries, he did get some starts last year. But, yeah, I mean, he's a guy that should be on a bubble on a good football team and should have to earn his spot. And we're talking about guys down the roster. We're not talking about potential starters just having to fight for roster spots. You look at the top of the roster and the 22 to 25 guys that are going to get starting level snaps. And it's pretty set. It's just kind of filling in the other areas of the roster. And that tells you that this is a very talented football team.